Where's Morello? I thought he came in. Morello? Okay, we're ready? 18? I'm going to just, okay, fine. So good morning. Welcome to today's meeting. Steve Morello, we probably have public speakers. How many? And we're ready to go.
We ask all of our speakers to keep to our 2-minute limit so that everyone can be treated equitably. First speaker is Bradley Brashears, to be followed by James Temples and William Henderson. Mr. Brashears. Morning.
Good morning, board members. I'm Brad Brashears, representing the New York City Transit Riders Council regarding the Atlantic Ticket Field Study, the pilot program to the Council's Freedom Ticket proposal. On Monday, we were encouraged that the Atlantic Ticket was approved by the Finance Committee, and we're now hopeful that all of you will vote in favor of this important study as well. From the Long Island Railroad's ridership book, we identified over 10,000 peak-hour empty seats between Southeast Queens stations and Atlantic Terminal. These non-revenue generating seats should be priced accordingly. Our region has some of the longest commute times in the country. This pilot study is capable of substantially reducing many commutes by allowing Southeast Queens riders who are far from city subway service to take in their closest rail service, the Long Island Railroad, to the subway, and at a more affordable rate. The Atlantic Ticket will have an important and meaningful rider impact by reducing fares and, most importantly, reducing some extreme 2+ hour commutes down to as little as 45 minutes. Financially, Atlantic Ticket riders will transform empty, non-revenue producing seats into income-producing seats. We urge you, the board, to vote in favor of the Atlantic Ticket Field Study. Let's get these seats filled, generate the much-needed revenue, and provide fare and travel time relief for so many outer borough commuters. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brashears. James Temples, William Henderson, and then Christopher Grief. Okay, Mr. Greif, I apologize, batting fourth. William Henderson, following or after James Temples. Mr. Temples, good morning.
Good morning, MTA board members, New York City Transit executives. My name is James Temples III. I've been with the Transit Authority for 40 years. I've seen him come and go, but I've never seen anything like Mr. Byford's plan, an inclusive plan that includes unions and management working together for the first time, working together to make the Transit Authority what it should be. Infrastructure build-up, more accessibility for people in wheelchairs and inaccessible areas, more bus service. These things are more communications with our customers. This is an excellent plan, and he needs our cooperation to get it done. And I, for one, I represent my supervisors, and the station supervisors we represent, we're about 600. I, for one, am going to encourage all my supervisors to work with Mr. Byfield in any way possible to get what he wants and get it done. We need the MTA board to get him the money and resources that's needed to do the job. The job needs to be done. It's about time. Now, we all know people are going to get inconvenienced. We know that. But we're New Yorkers. Nobody's better than us. We're New Yorkers. We have that flexibility. We can get the job done. So it's time we put our feet down, work with Mr. Byford, and get this job done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. William Henderson, Christopher Greif, and then Gene Ryan.
Good morning. We've been eagerly anticipating the corporate plan. We'll be listening intently when President Byford presents it. We're confident that the plan will make substantial moves in the right direction, and we base this confidence on the management style that we've seen in Mr. Byford's first 4 months leading NYC Transit. There certainly will be an intense discussion on the elements of the plan, and we'll do all we can to marshal the necessary resources and support actions that are in the long-term interests of our riders. I'd like to address elements that must underlie the corporate plan. The first of these is engagement between riders and NYC Transit. Not only does engagement help riders discern what help discern what riders are thinking and feeling, A robust two-way exchange can often be the difference between riders perceiving that the plan is something being done to them and their belief that the plan is being done with them. A second related element is communication. Riders must be not only engaged as plans are being developed, they must have access to information about both how and how well the plan is being implemented. Accountability is another element that must support the overall plan. We've been pleased to hear President Byford speak of accountability for the performance of his agency, as well as the accountability of individuals and groups of individuals for keeping the system running. We believe in giving people the resources necessary to do the job and holding them to the expectation that, barring extraordinary circumstances, the job will be done and done well. Finally, we believe that the plan must be developed, maintained, and implemented within an atmosphere of integrity. Without trust that the information presented accurately represents real conditions, the other elements that I've discussed are meaningless. Engagement and communication must be conducted using information that honestly represents the state of the system and the environment in which it operates. Accountability is useless if it's not based on real performance measures and realistic performance standards. We applaud President Byford for taking this bold step to lay out his vision of what the NYC transit system should be, and we'll do all we can to help him implement that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Christopher Greif, Jean Ryan, and then Janice Bartley. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Christopher Greif, also a member of the New York City Transit Riders Council, and also a member of people with from OPWD, the advocates, and people with disabilities. I'm also hope we can please vote yes for the Freedom Atlantic ticket because we need it. As you see here today, there are people here who need it. For care workers, people who are in wheelchairs or not wheelchairs, seniors, they need this because we need to go from plan A to plan B to travel. Subways right now on the E, the F, the J are overcrowded and there is no other options. Long Island Railroad needs the Free Atlantic ticket to go faster and get people where they have to go on time, safely, and concerned. And I hope in the near future we also work on more accessible stations, buses, increasing more so people can travel where they want to go, from shopping to go movies to go different places what they need. This is a very concerning. What we really ask you guys to really please vote this in. We need this Atlantic ticket like soon, very soon, and even today. So I encourage everyone here, please, yes, and please try to increase more bus service and additional subway services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greif. Jean Ryan, Janice Bartley, Douglas Dawkins. Let's see, is Jean Ryan with us? Okay, there you are. Thank you. Warm enough, Ms. Ryan? No?
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan. I'm from Disabled in Action, and we are in favor of radically improving bus rides, getting 100% of subway stations with working elevators, and radically improving access rides so that everyone, not just able-bodied people, can get around our city in a timely manner. We urge you to radically change access ride for the better now, not down the road. Everyone knows access-ride riders who get stranded while waiting for a ride, or who cannot go somewhere at all, or who get somewhere an hour and a half early or an hour and a half late. We are the people sitting outside work and doctors' offices and theaters and colleges and museums waiting endlessly for a ride once it finally comes. And once it finally comes, will zigzag us around the boroughs. We're the ones who can't go somewhere when plans change or stay until the end of a meeting. We need flexibility in travel like everyone else has. Now a pilot taxi e-hail program is giving 1,100 riders a chance at flexibility if we can actually get a cab. But that's only 0.74% of access ride riders, a lucky few. And that's less than 1% of all 148,185 access ride riders. How about the rest? We all need flexibility now. Don't just go for the majority because eventually we'll all have a disability. Everyone knows subways are a faster way than buses to go far, but I haven't been able to ride the subway for 24 years. And in all that time, no elevators have been built near where I live. We need all stations to have working elevators. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Ryan. Janice Bartley, Douglas Dawkins, and then Colin Wright. Janice Bartley first.
Yep. Hello, everybody.
Morning.
My name is Douglas Dawkins. I'm the president of 19 Rockwell Place. I'm gonna let y'all know that the elevators, they need to be fixed. We need to have more space on the buses. We need to have more space on the trains, and everybody could get where they gotta go.
Thanks, sir. Is Janice Bartley here? One second. Is Janice Bartley here? Okay. Let's just keep the line up.
My name is Janice Bartley. I have been taking Access a ride for about 20 years, and that was just to get here this morning. I am joking, but sometimes it really does feel that way with the delays that we have to deal with. I've been late for numerous appointments, missed appointments, and if it's really important to get there, I've learned I have to schedule rides 3 hours in advance to make sure that I will arrive on time. I live in the Bronx and I've been taken on tour through Queens or Brooklyn on the way to appointments in Manhattan, and just as many times I've been left waiting at my door for a ride that didn't show, or was waiting outside after an appointment. For my return trip home, when you have only one means of transportation to depend on to get you from point A to point B, it can be very frustrating and discouraging if things do not work as they should. It's sad to say, but I sometimes feel like society thinks people with disabilities don't lead productive and meaningful lives, and that is reflected in the services that we receive. I feel that if people could really see that people with disabilities' lives really matter, it would change how people look at the disability community, and more importantly, the way that we are treated. All I want is to be able to get to my job and to my appointments on time like anyone else does.
Thank you for coming this morning, Ms. Bartley. Douglas Dawkins, Colin Wright, and then Kate Slevin. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. Colin Wright, Kate Slevin, Jason Rivera. Pardon me. Colin Wright. Didn't take much to throw me off.
Good morning. My name is Colin Wright with Transit Center's Access Denied campaign. This is a big morning for New York City Transit and for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. According to news reports, today's corporate plan contains a bold commitment for which riders have waited decades. Vastly accelerated subway station accessibility for all New Yorkers, including people with disabilities, the elderly, parents, and so many others. This is an unprecedented commitment from New York City Transit, and thank you. Today's plan is ambitious, and President Byford, as you have pointed out, transit will be judged on whether or not it can deliver on these commitments. Please resist anyone who dismisses this as an impossible task. And though an ambitious plan is a necessary start, it will be up to New York's elected officials to marshal the resources to fund it. Transit Center will stand with you in Albany to advocate for the resources you need to deliver on this plan. President Byford clearly listened to the disability rights community and incorporated their needs into this plan. That impulse should persist within transit and throughout the entire MTA on all matters affecting riders. Indeed, transit is in the process of hiring an executive-level accessibility advisor. We urge the entire MTA to hire and promote people with disabilities into its leadership ranks. There are no better watchdogs for accessible design, construction, and training than those who personally experience barriers to accessibility. With 3/4 of stations unavailable to people with disabilities and a host of other station accessibility challenges, we still have a long journey toward full and equal subway access. But we're confident that under your leadership, President Byford, New York City Transit will finally operate a subway system that's truly accessible to all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kate Slevin. Then Jason Rivera, and then Alan Timothy Lunsford. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Kate Slevin, a Senior Vice President at Regional Plan Association. I'm here this morning to call on our elected leaders and the MTA Board to support President Andy Byford as he works to upgrade the subway and bus systems. Having a leader release a comprehensive roadmap to modernize a giant bureaucratic agency and the transit system it runs is not something that happens every day. This is a historic occasion. RPA believes internal agency reform is crucial to fixing the broader problems within the transit system. We've released a number of recommendations, for example, putting one team in charge of transit projects from start to finish, calling for the creation of a special purpose vehicle to speed up project delivery, and new public engagement processes that involve the public early and often. We have also joined with other groups across the city in advocating for transit to take every opportunity to increase accessibility, including adding elevators as part of the L-Train project. The agency's bus action plan was a crucial step to building goodwill with riders and advocates. Andy Byford and the leaders at the MTA will not be able to do this alone. From the governor and state legislature, we will need leadership to improve new funding and get this done. RPA has long supported congestion pricing for New York City for this reason. Mayor de Blasio will also have a role to play. Redesigning our citywide bus network and fixing it will require giving buses priority on dozens of city streets. This will also require more patience from riders for temporary disruptions that will allow for transformative change. Speeding up installation of signal improvements, for example, may mean extended service outages on subway lines. On a smaller note, we have long advocated for making commuter rail trips within New York City more affordable and are excited about the MTA moving forward with the Atlantic Ticket proposal to give discounted Long Island Railroad trips for riders boarding certain stations in Brooklyn and Queens. We urge the board to approve this proposal today. We are pleased to be here on this momentous day and look forward to working with the MTA and President Byford on the implementation of this plan. This is our moment to start to turn things around. Let's not waste this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jason Rivera, then Alan Timothy Lunsford, and then H.P. Schroer. Good morning.
Good morning. Marino is Pinheiro for the record. Good morning, all. We have been waiting for this moment to hear about the Byford plan. I'm very excited to hear about it, and we are going to work together in this plan. And I hope that the food board will vote yes on the Atlantic ticket. Why? Because it will benefit residents like me that live in Brooklyn, and we could travel to Southeast Queens without wasting an hour or plus on traveling on the subway. It is time that we get our system back to its good days. So I hope that we could work together as a single team, not two teams, because all of us will benefit of it in the long run. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Pinheiro. Alan Timothy Lunsford. Jessica Murray. I'm sorry.
I'm Alan Timothy Lunsford Stevens, and board members and Mr. LaHoda, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Thank you for allowing Mr. Byford to reach out to the disabled community and see the trouble we're having riding the subway. We hope Mr. Byford's ideas are implemented with your support wholly and a commitment by all for access to all MTA riders. Please commit yourselves to voting for access for all. I see that you've changed the way New York you have changed the way New York City travelers access the subway. I see electric outlets and Wi-Fi on buses. I see you spend money on comfortability, but you don't put the disabled in mind. The American Disabled Act is 28 years old. Current elevators are not repaired or reported in time for access by the disabled. I think a plan needs to be put for that. I have childhood arthritis and a titanium left foot. My my right foot is now getting brittle as my knees, and I am deaf. I'm also losing my vision. Access to the MTA is always a challenge for me to ride the MTA. The current L train renovation has not had an elevator installation in any of the renovation plans. How can you renovate and not think of disabled access? The MTA has had 28 years to plan for the disabled access to the MTA. The time is now to make the MTA accessible for all MTA subways. Access-a-ride is a burden on the disabled traveling without access on demand. The master plan is now addressing the elevator issue, but does not address all the disabled issues that exist. The time is now for access by the disabled on all subway stops. The journey is ahead for all of us. Let's work together to make the MTA transit accessible for all. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Schroer, and Jessica Murray, and then Omar Vera. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is H.P. Schroer. I'm a veteran of World War II. And I've recently formed an organization called You and Me Become We. And what we want is a veteran's discount, the same as given to seniors. More states across the country are taking steps to give all veterans a 50% discount. New York State, however, languishes behind. There is a bill in Albany since 2015 which gives all veterans a 50% discount. It still is waiting for the governor's approval. We're making some headway. Since our last meeting, the New York City Council has budgeted for providing discounts for veterans attending college. We thank them for stepping up to the plate. However, the discount stops when they graduate, and it leaves 90% of veterans without coverage. My fellow veterans and I asked the governor, the mayor, to stop fighting like two kids in a sandbox. It's time for both of them to enact a veteran's discount. For 2 to 3 cents, it can be done. Surely a veteran who sacrificed for our country is worth pennies a day. Other transit systems throughout the country are confronted with the same financial problems as the MTA, yet they recognize the moral obligation that we have to veterans. We'll be back in June to hear whether you reconsider your refusal to implement a veterans discount. We are not, and I repeat, not going away.
Thanks, sir. Jessica Murray, and Omar Vera, and Miriam Fisher. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of Rise and Resist to thank Andy Byford for your leadership on accessibility in the past few months. We came here in January with a high level of skepticism and presented you with a pointed gift, a subway map that we expected you to change. You rode the subway with us to see what it's like for people with disabilities, and you listened as we pointed out problems besides elevators. You invited and heard the input of advocacy groups in 2 separate meetings. Several people who have been fighting for equal access to transportation for most of their careers told me that they've heard more about accessibility from the MTA in the past few months than they have in the past 30 years. It may be that our voices have gotten louder, but I think it's also a result of your leadership, and I want to highlight it to this board. We may not hear a lot of specifics in today's plan about the 8 pages of issues that we brought to your attention, but we support your efforts and will do whatever we can to make sure that you get the funding you need. We ask the board to support your efforts and include full funding for accessibility improvements in the next capital plan. Because it really comes down to funding if we ever want to get to a subway system that's 100% accessible. And it comes down to funding if we want real accountability for Access-a-Ride, for elevator maintenance, and for full compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Thank you.
Very much. Omar Vera, Miriam Fisher, and then Vijay Dugal.
Good morning, MTA Board. Welcome to the May edition of your board meeting. And today we have a lot to discuss about, most notably the highlight of the day, President Byford's plan, his transit plan. This is clearly a step in the right direction in order to make the MTA great again. Because as you know, reversing 20 years of neglect, over 20 plus years, a quarter century almost, is not easy. But it's a must-do task. And I believe that that his plan, his leadership, he turned around the TTC in Toronto. So now it's our turn at the MTA. And the way to do it is to do what he said, a top-to-bottom modernization of the system, to quote himself. The plan should also include, as H.P. Schroeder say, a veterans discount. They've served our country long enough. They deserve the discount, and I'm with him on this one as well. And I'm also glad that the MTA at the Finance Committee passed this freedom ticket thing, although what should have come with it was redistrict Far Rockaway as part of Zone 3, as it is part of the city. But that's another fight that we can continue one day. And last but not least, it should also include the A&C service modifications in the Rockaways, as that will also alleviate the headways, the current problems that goes on with those two subway lines along 8th Avenue and Fulton Street. And of course, with that, I have to say before I go, thank you, President Byford, so much. You will clearly make the MTA great again. Thank you so much. You are the new Tom Prendergast. And people should follow his leadership. And thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Miriam Fisher, then Vijay Dugal, and then Joe Rappaport. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Miriam Fisher, a longtime advocate of mass transit, subway rider, somebody with an invisible disability, bad back, bad knee. And while I want to bring up the issue not only of elevators, but escalators and ramps for some of the subway stations that may not be able to be retrofitted for elevators. We have several stations now that are going to be closed for months at a time on the B and the C, the L train, what can be done for those particular stations. I'm also talking about the diversity of needs for people who need to sit. The seats have been, 6 seats have been taken out per car on some of the trains, the E train, which is my stop. The latest information on that is that there's been no evidence that it made a difference. There was a model in Boston of also taking out seats. It seemed to not add more space, and I also recommend folding seats for those who do need to sit. It would still open up the space. Not everybody uses it. The space would be there, but for those who need to sit, the diversity of population that we're talking about, the seats would be available. I'm also thinking of the proposal several months back of Council Member Helen Rosenthal about investigating the costs of some of the renovations that in New York compared to comparable projects in other cities like London, Paris, where it takes $1 million to add a new route and $1 billion in New York, and what's happening with some of that as we're spending these billions of dollars for renovation. I look forward to hear what President Byford has to say about the new renovations and accessibility on the subways. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dugal, then Joe Rappaport, and then Mary Parison. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Vijay Dugal. I'm an architect. You probably remember me from the previous meeting. I had distributed another handout today to the board that illustrates how all these deaths and injuries that are occurring due to subway can be prevented. Please take a moment to take a look at this. And first, let me take a moment to congratulate Mr. Loda on all the funding that he has secured for the MTA. It wasn't that easy, but he made the effort. He went door to door knocking at the city council, and now we have funding, and that's what we are talking about. But now it's time to get to action. And one question never is being discussed here is what happens if any of these individuals, any one of us, particularly the people with disabilities, fall into the train tracks. And this system that I have illustrated shows that nobody has to die. Anybody who falls into the train tracks for one reason or another will be saved. And it would not really cost anything. And it will be all decorative deck within the tracks. It'll make the tracks clean and safer. And I have also illustrated it will not only cost nothing, it will generate money for the MTA. So please take a moment to look at this plan. And for the people who don't know what I'm talking about, please go and write down this URL where I have posted this design. It's www.innotect.net/MTA. Let me say that again. It's Innotect, INNOTECT.net/MTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Rappaport, then Mary Parison, and then our final speaker, Victor Andrews. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Joe Rappaport. I'm here with Valerie Joseph, who was hoping to say something but had a very long ride on Access-A-Ride today from Queens Village. I'm the executive director of the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, and in his corporate plan, President Byford is placing a new and long overdue emphasis on the accessibility of New York City's transit system, as have Chairman Loda, other staff members, and other board members. We look forward to working with you, as we already have, to make those plans a reality. However, there's always a however, isn't there? We had hoped President Byford would make the bold and very reasonable commitment to offer on-demand e-hail for all Access-A-Ride riders in his new corporate plan. And Valerie and Gabriella, also from my organization, can say a few words about that, and then I have one other thing to say quickly.
All right, we're going to try to do this. Good morning, board. I hope you can hear me. My name is Valerie Joseph. I am the Access-A-Ride advocate for Brooklyn Center. I, this morning, had a long ride. I've been on the road since 7:15 this morning to get here, and I was the only one on the van. I don't think this is fair that Access-A-Ride is taking as long as they are, but I do appreciate the new curb app. I can get from my office back home, but I cannot get from my home to my office, and this is why I have to use Access-A-Ride in the morning. Please, please try to change this. It has changed my life tremendously, but to get on a ride that takes 2.5 hours or more to get to my office, I do not think is fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gabriella?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Gabriella Amari. I also work at Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled. I, too, was trying to get a cab this morning in downtown Brooklyn. I could not get anything, so I took the train, hence the fact that I had to kind of elbow my way in here. I do like the curb system, though. It's improving every day. Every time I take it, it gets a little better, and I think it should be a regular program, not just a pilot after a little while, because it gives us on-demand rides. This is what we've been wanting for a very long time. I also think that there is a way to do that for the regular AAR system. You just need to do it. It's doable. We know this, okay? So that's the main thing that people in chairs especially, but people with all disabilities really would like to be able to have an on-demand service, same day, instead of having to make reservations, because you could have an emergency and you can't predetermine that emergency. Okay, so when you try to, get any kind of, okay, that's me. Anyway, on demand, please try and look into it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all. Mary Parison, and then our final speaker, Victor Andrews.
Good morning. My name is Mary Parison Lavelle. I'm the chair of Civics United for Railroad Environmental Solutions. I'm here today to ask President Ng and this board to stop at placing the rights of New York and Atlantic Railway above the MTA Long Island Railroad's own rights and duties, and the needless public health and safety harms New York and Atlantic Railway inflicts on Long Island commuters, workers, communities, and taxpayers. MTA, Long Island Railroad, needs to stop treating these harms like collateral damage, even if it's more convenient to turn a blind eye to these harms and give in to New York and Atlantic Railway. MTA, Long Island Railroad, is the owner of its freight railroad and equipment and is a public benefit corporation. Long Island Railroad has very strong rights and a duty to protect the public. However, Long Island Railroad has allowed New York and Atlantic to operate dangerously using high-polluting locomotives needlessly and haul and store open gondolas of landfill-bound mixed waste in Long Island neighborhoods. Long Island Railroad has been telling the elected officials that New York and Atlantic has exercised its right to buy 4 ancient Long Island Railroad locomotives as though the Long Island Railroad had no say in the matter, which you know is false. This is an unfolding public health fiasco for which Long Island Railroad is responsible. You will also recall that the Long Island Railroad also said that New York and Atlantic exercised its right to renew the transfer agreement while brushing aside Long Island Railroad's rights and duties and New York and Atlantic's violations. How is the MTA Long Island Railroad's conduct perceived outside the walls of this meeting room? Well, New York and Atlantic Railway is on the National Council of Occupational Health and Safety 2018 Dirty Dozen Employers List.
Can you wrap up, please, Ms. Perry?
Yes, I asked this board, you have the money, please take action, protect the public, and replace the remaining 8 locomotives with Tier 4 switcher locomotives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that Mr. Andrews there, Mr. Rappaport? Victor Andrews?
Good morning, MTA Board.
Morning.
I'm also with BCID as well, but I recommend that you revamp your website because it is inaccessible for a screen reader. And I can't navigate it at all to try to look at changes, services, or book a trip or anything because my screen, which is JAWS Access with Speech, is not accessible. Now, I can help you guys design a new web page that will work with JAWS if you let me, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm blind. There's a blind eye on that as well because the website is just not accessible.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Good morning and welcome to the May meeting. Today's meeting is going to be similar to last month's board meeting. We'll begin with the presentation, then go into the regular business of the meeting. And following the regular business, we will be going into executive session to discuss at least 2 topics. At this week's Long Island Railroad Committee meeting, Phil Eng introduced the railroad's new forward program, mapping out a new vision for the Long Island Railroad, both to improve reliability and to modernize it. Today, we'll be hearing from Andy Byford with his top-to-bottom analysis of what it is, what's required to modernize and completely modernize the New York City Transit. So I also want to take a moment now to thank everyone who helped both Phil and Andy in developing these plans, which I think are extraordinary. And before I turn the floor over to Andy, I want to make it known that the costing of Andy's plan is not complete. I want to put any cost estimates through a very rigorous process. As I mentioned last month, our experience at estimating project costs is woefully inadequate, and I also believe makes the MTA subject to ongoing criticism, if not ongoing ridicule. I want to take advantage of the work of our procurement and cost containment task forces to better refine our cost. Additionally, the cost of Andy's bold plan must be looked at in context of the entire 2020-2024 capital plan. Accordingly, all estimates are premature and inevitably not accurate. The point of today's presentation is not about numbers, but it's to show that we can and we will modernize the New York City subway system. Time for debate about what's included in the 2020-2024 capital plan for all of our operating agencies, and that plan's sources of funding will be subject of another day. I always think it's right to provide board members with an opportunity to be briefed, and I will continue to make sure that board members get briefed, as you were yesterday prior to today's presentation. Unfortunately, information from yesterday's briefings was given to the newspapers and for an opportunity to preempt Andy's presentation. It provided partial, inadequate, and I might also add inaccurate information, which I think caused alarm and alarmist headlines in today's newspapers. While I think this is unfortunate, I accept it, absolutely accept it as a fact of life. And so I really want to reiterate that today's presentation by Andy is a sound roadmap to modernize the subway system, actually all of New York City Transit, not just the subway system. Because New York City, the greatest city in the world, deserves a world-class transit system. And again, you know, the point of this presentation is to talk about what we have planned and what needs to be done to modernize our subway system. And with that, I'd like to ask Andy to deliver his presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, board members. Good morning. Thank you to the people that spoke this morning. Very much appreciate the kind comments that were made. I would just like to say straight up, I mean, people call it my plan. It's not actually my plan, it's our plan. It's, I just want to do a big shout out for my team that have put together this plan in very short order. But just by way of contextualizing this, can you hear it? Yeah, sure. By way of, thank you. By way of contextualizing this, when I took on this role just over 100 actually 100 days ago, less than 100 working days ago, I did so knowing that my primary challenge was to not only run the service day to day on behalf of the board, on behalf of you as my customers, but also to oversee the complete modernization of New York City Transit. And it seemed to me that what was needed here wasn't just a tweak, as the chairman said earlier. It wasn't just a tweak, a few adjustments here and there. Rather, it needed to be a complete overhaul of every aspect of what we do. Our people, in terms of our culture, our processes, how we go about things, but also the infrastructure that we use and the equipment that we use to get you from A to B. So today we have a limited number of hard copies of the plan, but what I'm presenting to you and the plan itself will go up on our website, so you will be able to access it. We will get that up on the website later today if it's not already up. But I hope that this presentation whets your appetite for what I hope will be seen as a bold, imaginative, ambitious plan that meets the challenge of the position that I took up just over 100 calendar days ago. So the background to this plan, as we know, lies in the state of emergency declared by Governor Cuomo back in last summer, and a series of high-profile incidents coupled with a slow but really sustained decline in operational performance on both the subway and the buses meant that immediate action was required. And from that unprecedented but very necessary move by the governor was born the Subway Action Plan. That plan is working, and I'm very confident that we will see the fruits of that plan and get back to an acceptable level of reliability on the subway as literally decades of underinvestment in the subway and deferred maintenance are rectified. But to me, there's a far greater problem and a far bigger opportunity. New York is a growing city, and notwithstanding recent softening in both bus and subway ridership, everyone knows, I mean, people alluded to it today, that the subway struggles to cope with that ridership, as do our buses as they encounter ever more congested roads. The 50,000 strong NYCT team, our colleagues, my colleagues, I think perform miracles actually in the job that they do every day to move 8 million people, most of whom get from A to B without incident. But as I've previously said, service reliability is nowhere near good enough, and we must find a way to add substantial capacity to New York's transit system to provide a transit network that is worthy of the greatest city in the world. At the end of the day, riders are fed up, stakeholders are frustrated, and it's time for decisive action to truly transform our transit system, and for that, we need a plan. This is that plan, a plan that will modernize New York City Transit from top to bottom, and that we're deliberately calling Fast Forward. And the words are deliberately chosen. Fast, because we intend and recommend to substantially accelerate critical improvements, and forward because this is about giving New Yorkers a modern, efficient, dynamic, and accountable transit organization that delivers on its promises and puts customers first. So as I said earlier, this needs to be a comprehensive overhaul, and we must aim much higher than stabilizing what we have done to date. We need to completely overhaul and transform our infrastructure, the equipment and assets that we use. We need to overhaul the processes and systems that so often hold us back. And we need to overhaul our culture so that our employees, our most valuable asset, our employees feel engaged, and so that through them, then customers feel valued. And to that end, we've already embarked upon a rollout of a new transit organization, one that is built around a customer-centric continuous improvement model, one that emphasizes transparency and accountability, and one that delivers, going forward, delivers on its promises. We're already investing in new vehicles and infrastructure, but that needs to be massively accelerated and in a way that opens up transit to all New Yorkers. This plan addresses all of those needs, and it is anchored around the 4 equal priorities that I outlined on my very first day in this job, namely to transform the subway to exponentially improve reliability and to expedite the addition of much-needed line capacity, to reimagine and reinvent the bus network, to reverse the ongoing decline in ridership and tackling the many challenges that face our network and get riders back onto the buses, and to prioritize accessibility, speeding up the rollout of elevators, overhauling Access-a-Ride, and improving the availability of existing accessible-related infrastructure. And finally, 4th priority of equal merit and equal importance, to transform the culture at transit so that our people feel more motivated, they feel inspired and well-led, and so that good people flourish in a dynamic, flatter organization, and so that everyone knows the mission and what is expected of them, and critically, so that we progressively become trusted to deliver on our promises every time. So what does this plan look like? Well, as you can see up on the slide there, in the first 5 years, we are going to undertake a huge amount of change consistent with that message that I just said about accelerating investment and accelerating improvements. You can see there, and I'm going to cover each of these items in more detail. We believe that we can speed up the introduction of communications-based train control, modern signaling system. We can speed that up and add that critical system, which adds capacity and exponentially improves reliability, to 5 additional lines in the first 5 years. For that, we'll need new subway cars. Many are on order, but they will need to also be converted to CBTC, and again, more on that in a moment. Hugely speed up the rollout of accessible stations, in other words, the installation of elevators, expedite the state of good repair work at stations, 150 stations within the first 5 years, redesign the bus routes. We just the other night had a session on Staten Island where we were undertaking the public hearing about the redesign of the express bus network, and I can tell you today that the next borough to be addressed will be the Bronx. And after that, within 5 years, we'll do the remaining 3 boroughs. So the whole network, all 5 boroughs, will have the bus service redesigned within that time frame. New fare payment system, a smart card, finally moving away from Metro cards, moving on to a smart card system that will be as good as any that can be found in the world, and a huge number of new buses. But in the following 5 years, more progress, further progress on the rollout of resignaling, another 6 lines, up to 130 additional stations made accessible, so making huge progress in that priority that I set out on my first day back on January the 16th about expediting accessibility. Another 150 stations, so that's a total of 300, for which we would undertake state of good repair work. More new subway cars, more new buses. So let's focus then on this in more detail, and particularly kicking off with what I believe is the most transformative thing we can do to improve subway service, and that is to expedite the replacement of the traditional signal system. So the traditional fixed block signaling system has served us well. It remains safe, but it has major limitations. It's reached its limitations in terms of capacity, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain and to operate. And that's why I sometimes refer to my employees, my teams out there, as miracle workers, because they keep this very old equipment safe and in good working order. But this does have a detrimental impact upon reliability as we continue to firefight in a largely reactive maintenance regime. And as has been noted by others, if we continue in the same linear, roughly 7-year cycle to roll out one line at a time onto CBTC, it's going to take around 40 years to re-signal the whole subway, and that is simply untenable and unacceptable. So in putting together this plan, I challenged my team to look afresh at the underlying principles and assumptions behind the existing plans to upgrade signals. And again, I want to do a big thank you to you, my experts, for accepting this challenge. And my direction included fresh way of looking at things, undertaking more than one line project at once, but avoiding parallel routes, of course, minimizing the temptation to customize products and reaping the benefit of proven off-the-shelf products. So in other words, if there's a good signaling system out there that is proven to work well and proven to work reliably and safely, minimize the customization. There will always be things we need to tweak, but let's not overly customize known, proven products. And in similar fashion, to minimize interfaces, contractual interfaces that introduce both cost, uncertainty, and risk. Critically, another fresh way of looking at this, to put more focus on where capacity is most needed, not just looking at renewal, project renewal based on the age of a line's asset. Now, obviously, state of good repair is very important. You've got to look at those older areas of the lines. That still remains a priority, but let's also look at those areas which may be newer but have fundamental capacity challenges. And then finally, greatly increasing the number of weekend and overnight closures to expedite work and give crews the access they need. So by applying these principles, those principles that I've just set out, we believe that we can cut that 40-year time frame by 75%. We believe that we can deliver nearly, not entirely, but nearly the entire subway system onto modern signaling within 10 years. Faster still, and this is a key point, faster still, quicker still, if the emerging genius ideas of ultra-wideband signaling and a new car design enable us to speed things up. So, but think back to that genius challenge. We haven't forgotten about that. We're actively working on those two initiatives, one, ultra-wideband, and two, the bigger cars and the other ideas. If they do prove to be a goer, then we could speed this up still further. So here's a little reminder, and hopefully you can see the map. We were trying to get this a little darker. It might be easier to look at one of these screens. But you can see there the current state of the service, the current state of modern signaling on the New York City Transit network. So there's around about 900,000 customers a day who benefit from modern signaling, either on the L line, the Canarsie, which is already on CBTC, or very soon on the 7 line. So I've included that within the 2018 map. The 7 line, Flushing Main Street to 34th Street, Hudson Yards, that is going to go live with CBTC later this year. So 900,000 people. In 5 years, we can accelerate that to 3 million people a day riding on modern signaling. And you can see there, just look back at that previous map, that spread of lines, that huge spread, suddenly the network is beginning to look a lot more positive in terms of modern signal coverage. And consistent with those principles that I outlined earlier on in the challenge I set down to my team, we're not only tackling the older lines, we're also tackling those lines that really need modern signaling. So you'll see on there a couple of what I call the big guns, the Lexington and the 8th line. So lines that really do need that extra capacity. So those are listed on those lines. We'll do them in sections, but we believe that we need to tackle those big lines to add much needed capacity. Keep an eye on that map. Now look at what we believe we can do in 10 years, less than 10 years. If you watch the map, now it changes. We believe that we can do that, an additional 2 million customers a day, so for a total of 5 million out of 5.7 million customers a day riding the subway, 5 million customers a day on CBTC lines, again, addressing the really important areas. You can see for yourself on the map there that network rapidly progresses to truly be a modern signaling system with the capability, reliability benefits, and the capacity improvements that CBTC or maybe ultra-wideband will bring. But subway improvements go beyond signaling. It's not all just about signaling. And a critical point I want to get across today, not just for the subject of subway, but also for buses and for accessibility. We are not asking New Yorkers to wait for 5 years until you see any improvements. There's a lot of improvements, front-end loaded improvements, that are included within this plan. So let me just outline some of those. We are in the process of changing the way we manage our subway stations. I'm very keen to introduce a concept which I call a group station manager into the subway system, whereby, as the name suggests, you will have a series of managers who will each have under their watch, under their control, a group of stations. It's a job I used to do on the tube way back in the 90s and early 2000s. I was the group station manager at King's Cross Station. What does that mean? I was held single point accountability for everything that went on in that station, the safety of the station, the performance of the employees, the cleanliness of the station, the performance of the tenants, in other words, the shopkeepers, to make sure they were doing the right thing, fire safety, everything, every single thing that went on in that station, I was held single point accountable for. And I want to introduce a role in this subway where we have someone with similar focus. It's single point accountability for around 20-25 stations. And what else are we going to do within this 5 years? And earlier still. We need to roll out public address at all of the remaining stations. Unbelievably, in 2018, quite a few subway stations do not have a centralized public address system. So no wonder customers get frustrated when they feel that they can't, they're not getting the right information. Notwithstanding the great efforts of our rail control center, they actually can't broadcast to those stations. It's ridiculous. It needs to be fixed. We're going to get on and do it. I've already mentioned 150 stations to receive capital improvements in each of the 5 years. There will be a 7-fold increase in station camera security systems. In other words, putting cameras in to keep customers safe and secure. And I mentioned earlier on that we will move to a proactive rather than a reactive maintenance approach, and we will build on and complete the Subway Action Plan also in 2018. So a huge amount, lots of immediate benefits. You are going to see the stations a lot cleaner. Back to those group station managers. I will hold them accountable for not only the customer service side of what they do, but also the cleanliness and the look and appearance of what goes on in those locations. On to the buses. Second key priority for our plan relates to the bus network. So I won't spend too long on this because we launched the Bus Action Plan just last month. So what I will say, though, is we are determined to reverse and to arrest initially, but to arrest and reverse the ridership decline that we've experienced in recent days. And I want to get riders back on the buses. So you can see some of the highlights there. I alluded to the first one. We will complete that bus network redesign. We're going to aim to do that within 3 years. You heard me talk previously at this very board meeting about the Bus Action Plan and how it does require effective traffic enforcement. So we'll be working with NYPD. We'll be working with our colleagues at DOT, with Commissioner Trottenberg and her team, to give buses a fighting chance of getting through the traffic. So that means more bus lanes, but it means effectively policed bus lanes. It means speeding up boarding. So we will introduce all-door boarding concurrent with the introduction of smart card. Once the smart card comes in, we will allow people with proof of payment to get on at any of the doors. A huge effort under Darrell's leadership, a huge effort is going to happen in terms of managing reliability. We're already increasing the reliability of our bus fleet thanks to the great work going on out in our depots, but we know that we can do better and we're going to do more. And that goes hand in hand with enhancing what is already a good fleet. We want it to be a world-class fleet. We want it to be an environmentally friendly fleet. So we are piloting 60 electric buses. As long as we can prove the technology, as long as we can get the infrastructure, including power facilities at our locations, as long as the trial works and is proven, we do intend to move to an all-electric fleet in the future. And then finally, many of you maybe have used it. We are piloting at the moment a double-decker bus on Staten Island, and so far that's been very well received. Throw into that mix a new bus command center, which is coming together now out in East New York. that will open in 2019. That will make a fundamental difference to how we command and control our buses, with a great emphasis, not just on incident management, but proactive daily service management, and around 2,100 new buses. So lots happening right now on the buses. Okay, let's talk about the third equal priority, and that's that of accessibility. Here again, we want to move ahead, fast forward. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. So this plan describes how we can more than double the pace of accessible stations. And with targeted infill of 36 more stations, we can get to a point within 5 years where all subway riders are no more than 2 stops away from an accessible station, which is a massive improvement on today's situation. But we believe we can do better than that. We believe we can do better than 36 additional stations. We believe we can deliver in excess of 50 accessible stations in the first 5 years, more than 130 in the following 10, with the balance to be completed, or those that are possible, by 2034. And on that point about possibility, a study of all remaining inaccessible stations is already underway. I previously announced this at this board. We have a company on board who are establishing the cost and ease of elevator installations, and I've already reached out to accessibility groups to discuss the order in which we will tackle those remaining locations. Lots more to come, and you'll notice on this, this chart, there's also a lot of emphasis on 2018. We need to get better at the as-is, as has come through very clearly from people in this room. So that does mean making the existing equipment work better. We need to drive up the reliability of existing elevators. It's not all about new elevators, it's make the existing equipment work better. Get better at telling you about it, so much more tangible and timely information about the status of elevators and other accessibility issues. I'm in the process, as was mentioned by one of the speakers, of appointing an accessibility advisor, a first for the MTA, an accessibility advisor, which to reinforce the importance that I put on this subject will be a direct report to me. And that person will hold me to account and give me advice on accessibility matters from an expert who's much better informed than I am in what needs to be done and in what order. So a huge amount there. One thing I do want to say is where it says more direct accessor ride routes, I hear you. A lot of these accessor ride routes go around the houses, right? It's a kind of a circuitous route. We want to stop that, and so we do want to work with accessibility groups to provide much more direct accessor ride journeys. And that plus an expansion of e-hail and various other improvements, including the new My AAR app, which we're very excited about. Fourth equal priority relates to employees because it is only through the combined efforts of a motivated, engaged team who believe in and understand and accept the mission that you can truly deliver world-class service. You cannot deliver world-class service through coercion and a big stick. You've got to bring the employees with you. So we are redesigning the organization to be more dynamic, to be less hierarchical, and we intend to change the way we manage to get the best out of our employees. There needs to be less imposition of top-down policy and a more inclusive approach that mines the great knowledge and ideas of 50,000 wonderful colleagues. And to that end, we took into account the feedback of thousands of transit employees in formulating this plan, which many people said was a first for this organization, including inviting our union partners to contribute to what has made the cut within the document. So specific people-related highlights you can see on the board. A critical one I want to point out is that top one. Get the right people in the right jobs with the right mandate. So right now I'm focusing on my top team, getting the right people into place. But very much showing employees we value them. So in addition to that refreshed disciplinary policy that puts emphasis on coaching and correction rather than punishment, that we want to have more of a reward and recognition policy to reward and recognize the great work that goes on out there. We are starting what we call Meet the Exec, where none of my senior team meetings will be held at 2 Broadway. They will be held out in the field. We will go out to depots. We'll go out to garages. We'll go out to lunchrooms, and we will meet the troops while we're having our meeting and interact and show appreciation for what people do. And we want to develop a company where there are clear career paths. I started as a station foreman on the tube. So I want to pay back, and I want to give clear career paths. If you're good enough and you have the right aptitude and you have the right attitude and you really want to progress, my job is to help you do that. So we intend to put a lot of effort into the element of, into the section around people empowerment. Nearly done. There are three, in addition to those four priority areas, there are three foundational elements that run through this plan. And the first is for transit to become more agile in how it does business, and for us all to hold ourselves accountable and be held accountable in delivering on our promises. And to that end, we are going to undertake each of these activities that you can see highlighted on the screen. We do need to get better at how we manage, track, and report on our performance. You'll see a lot more granular data getting to the root cause of delays, but also overhaul the way we undertake projects. We don't have a stellar reputation in how we deliver on projects. So we will be strengthening our project controls so that we deliver on time and on budget. We do what we say we set out to do. We will be improving our technical specifications, improving the way we estimate to deliver more realistic quotes, and improving and expediting the design process. That plus streamlining procurement, picking up on the emerging recommendations of the four board task forces, I think is a key foundation that needs to go through the plan. As is the second, safety, security, and resiliency. It's not an initiative. It has to go through everything that we do. So that is a critical area, and we must never relax our guard when it comes to security, and we should continue to seek better ways to keep our employees, our customers, and contractors safe. So some highlights for me on this would be the introduction, working with the union, obviously to get this right, of a confidential employees reporting hotline to make sure we understand if there are any near misses out there where people maybe don't have the confidence to report. The neighborhood policing policy that was, or initiative that was announced by Chief de la Torre just a couple of months ago, we intend to see that expanded. So having local cops serving local stations in conjunction with the group station managers that I earlier described. A sevenfold increase in stations with CCTV and various other initiatives to increase the resiliency of our stations and our other key facilities against climate change and sustainable practices to improve still further our environmental footprint. And the third element, third underlying element, is that of customer service and communication, a theme that is sprinkled throughout this plan. So I believe that actions speak louder than words, and we've already created a Chief Customer Officer, sitting just over there, hey Sarah, as part of the aforementioned reorganization. In fact, that was the first major role that I appointed at this organization, a Chief Customer Officer, someone to obsess about getting the customer product right and to obsess about the detail of customer service. Further customer-related improvements include, you'll see that one there, report quarterly on commitments. We're going to launch a customer charter or a customer commitment, call it what you will, but that is a quarterly document in which we will list out, by quarter, every 3 months, we will list out, we will deliver the following things for customers, tangible, time-bound improvements over the next quarter. And that will be absolutely binary. We'll either meet those targets or we won't. So there'll be a check or a cross against each of them when we report out against each of them. These will be tangible, customer-focused, and customer-facing improvements. Once the GSMs are in place, the group station managers, we intend to introduce Meet the Manager sessions. So where my exec and I are going to go out to internally for a Meet the Executive sessions, we're also going to advertise in advance Meet the Manager sessions where people like me and my execs, those on a rotating basis, but also the local station managers will turn up at locations to take questions, live questions from customers on a particular group. I've already talked about the new smart card. We intend to overhaul very quickly the Metro Pass replacement service because it's outrageous that it takes so long. You need a new card. Why should you have to wait so long? So we intend to do something about that and rapidly shorten, curtail that process. Plus, a more meaningful customer satisfaction survey, which will be a critical scorecard element, if you like, for the group station managers and for managers in Daryl's area on the buses, so that we can look at what are customers telling us via credible, granular customer satisfaction scores so that we can progressively increase our customer satisfaction by acting upon what customers actually tell us. And then finally, I do want to just pick up on something that someone mentioned out in the speakers. It is, of course, as we undertake this huge upgrade of the subway, we must keep customers informed. So it will be disruptive, but we must excel at keeping people informed. So, as I hope you agree, what I just took you through represents a wide-ranging and ambitious plan. And I would like to, again, thank my team. I'd like to thank Ronnie and Joe for your support, for helping me construct in such a short time period a comprehensive plan such as this, a plan that's been put together, again, in less than 100 working days. So our next steps include completing the organization, the reorganization, delivery of immediate improvements on a schedule that customers will see, so what I call quick wins, making sure that you don't feel you have to wait 5 years, and benefits from early improvements, and then progressive rollout of enabling process changes so that we become more dynamic. Now, as the chairman said, I know you're all wondering about cost. The cost is under development, and as the chair noted, we need to get this right. And I did refer earlier to that foundational policy of delivering against promises. So I don't want to fall at the first hurdle. We've got to get the price right because you're going to rightly hold us to it. So we will update on costs once we're short of the figures. In closing, I truly believe that we have a choice to make. Our plan demonstrates what can be done in a vastly expedited timeframe to transform New York City Transit from a state of emergency, how did it come to this, into a network worthy of the world's greatest city. It won't be easy to perform such massive upgrades in such a compressed timeframe on such a busy system, but we can do it. Transit is in a trough right now, but we can and we must come back. And what inspires me and gives me hope, it's two things. I saw London transform its system in about this sort of time frame. But what particularly inspires me is the way New York is renowned from coming back from crisis. Think about the despair of the financial crisis of the 1970s, the tragedy of 9/11, and the way that the transit in particular came back from the ravages of Superstorm Sandy. So it can be done. Not acting now is not an option, and it will only get more difficult and more expensive. So I believe this can be achieved, and we now have a roadmap to move forward, fast forward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Questions? Carl? Commissioner Weisbrot. Excuse me.
Oh, well, more a statement than a question, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really want to commend Andy Byford for putting together a really bold plan in such a short period of time, and a plan that not only would bring the system up to a state of good repair, but really brings it into the modern age, which is something that New Yorkers certainly deserve. And I especially appreciate the establishment in the plan of both short-term goals with clear metrics and fixing responsibility throughout the system where it deserves. And I just want to say that this is really why I joined this board, to help promote a transportation system for the region that New Yorkers deserve. And I just think this is such a good start. I recognize that there are going to be a lot of bumps and issues and some tough choices and perhaps changes, especially given the short amount of time that Mr. Byford had to work on this. And I also recognize that we as a board and as a entity have a huge credibility gap when it comes to cost. And as you noted, Mr. Chairman, with respect to procurement and estimating costs and implementing in a timely fashion. But as we address those issues, I hope that this board should not only be a monitor, but also advocate for a bold resource plan that will help support this. I know that we have a long way to go to determine the cost of this plan, but I think that all of us recognize that it will cost a lot of money. And I think that it's incumbent on this board to not only accept and make some recommendations regarding the allocation of funds, but also to be the advocate for those funds. And I do note, as I've noted in the past, that Los Angeles Metro board advocated for and got a $100 billion revenue stream for 10 years. And New York, it seems to me, should be able collectively to do that. And I recognize that a revenue plan has to be crafted in a way that's fair to all at all levels of government. And while this ultimately rests with our elected officials, I think we as a board should help lead the way and give a roadmap to them as to how this can be done.
Commissioner Vanderpool.
President Byford, thank you for responding to the need and accepting the responsibility of overhauling our transit system. It's something that has been discussed for quite some time, but since you've joined the MTA, it's moved at a good speed with a lot of support from your team and a lot of support from leadership within the agency. And while the costs of these initiatives over the long term is still being formulated, I think it's important for us, whenever this number does come out, to not be affected by sticker shock. I think we need to dispel this fallacy that this $17 billion or $18 billion that is spent on New York City transit, subways and buses over a 5-year period, which is the amount allocated in this existing capital plan of 15 to 19, that basically $3.6 billion a year is enough to fund the needs of our transit system. It is not. We as a public have been falsely conditioned to think that that is the right and adequate and sufficient amount of money to address the capital needs of this system. It is not. And whenever this number comes out, we need to take that into consideration and remember that. In fact, right now, our entire transit system, including the commuter railroads, serves as many people daily as live in New York City. It is the equivalent number. 8.6 million people live in New York City. 8.6 million people use our railroads, our buses, our accessoride, and our subways every single day. $3.6 billion is not enough money and capital needs to support that demand. And the number that consistently is put forth as a capital program number is not an accurate number. It is the politically expedient number. It is the number that is most politically palatable to our state legislature, to our governor, and to other stakeholders in our region. It is not the right number. And again, we need to move beyond this fallacy that this is appropriate, and we need an honest accounting of what it's going to cost to fix our system. It's not going to be a number that sounds good, and it's going to be a number that is constantly criticized. In fact, there have been reports in the press already about various stakeholders who are needed in this discussion preliminarily saying they're not going to pay, or this is not the right number. Again, we don't know what the right number is, but it's going to be a lot of money, as Commissioner Weisbrod said. And we cannot be dissuaded by the sticker shock.
Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, President Byford. I want to first thank you for the recognition for the staff, both the management staff and the line staff here, who have, I think, as you've aptly pointed out, performed miracles. We've deferred maintenance, we've failed to invest in the system, we've let the system run down, and yet some really dedicated people figure out how to get the majority of New Yorkers to and from where they need to go on time and without incident. And that is a remarkable testament to their dedication. As a New Yorker, I heard you say that New York is the greatest city in the world a couple of times. We like to say that. I think you'll find that New York is very parochial, and everybody seems to like to say constantly that we're the greatest city in the world. We don't have the greatest transit system in the world. If we're going to be the greatest city in the world, if we're going to remain the economic center of the United States, we have to have world-class transit. This can change. We can easily not be the economic center of gravity in the United States. This region doesn't have to be that. It's not just simply bequeathed to us that that's who we are. Failure to invest in mass transit means that industry, businesses, people, intelligentsia will leave New York. I agree completely that it's going to take a massive investment. And part of that investment is going to require an adult conversation with the people of the state of New York. We've got to say to the people of the state of New York that if you want to live in a state that has the most important city in the country, that houses the most important economic region in the country, that houses the most important jobs, the highest paying jobs, that can underwrite an education system and all the other things that make a city great, you've got to pay for a transportation system that makes it convenient for people to get to and from where they have to go. So I applaud your plan. I think it's high time that we started to think outside the box. I think it's critically important that we fix problems in shorter and shorter time frames. But I do think, with all due respect, that this is really just the beginning. We have to think much bigger. We have to think much bolder. And I think at the end of the day, what it really is going to come down to is how much the citizens of the state of New York are going to be willing to pay to have a world-class transit system.
Peter, thank you very, very much. Commissioner Trottenberg?
Andy, I want to join with my colleagues and say what a terrific plan this is, hitting, I think, the things that have been big priorities for so many folks in the city and in this board, accelerating, obviously, the communication system, a real bold step forward on accessibility. And I totally agree with Peter. I think your focus on your team here and all your colleagues, the men and women, as you say, your miracle workers who do make the system work every day, it's very inspiring. And look, obviously, we're discussing these incredible priorities, and I'm sure there will be a big price tag attached. And I would just, a couple of thoughts on that. I mean, one, I would put for the board to consider in the short term, might we look, I mean, I think the things you're laying forward are very urgent and important. And I would ask, when we look at our current plans, might we see if there's some way we can jumpstart some of the things you want to do right away? Obviously, the bigger discussion will be something that will take place, no doubt, up in Albany amongst, many elected officials. Some of the ideas have been out there, millionaire's tax, congestion pricing. And I would just note, Carl, because you mentioned L.A., just a little contrast with L.A. L.A. counties in California are self-help counties. So they can pass their own sales tax measures to fund their own transit systems. That's what L.A. County has done. And I think that has been a tremendously successful model and something I wish we could have here in New York. And I would just add, to you, Andy, because obviously your plan focuses also on bus service. The city, both DOT and NYPD, obviously look forward to working with you all on that. And on things like the L train, where we're working together. And I think, finding a model that will be sustainable as you, I think, move aggressively, understandably, to close down more lines at night and at other times to get some of this work done. Obviously, the city will have a role in making sure things are functioning on the surface during those periods. So thank you. It's a great plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Pally.
Thank you, President Byford. For those of us who do not live in the city of New York, I just wanted to indicate my total support for the plan. It is essential that this region work together to ensure that the subway system and the bus system in the city of New York is first class, is modern, is clean, is efficient, and any other adjectives I can come up with at the moment. But for those of us who don't live in the city, we have to make sure our residents and our elected officials understand that the success of the subway and bus system benefits everyone in the region, not just the people who live in the city. Many of our people take the subway and bus system when they get here from the commuter rails, and that's one group, and they'll get a direct benefit. But there are many people who don't use the subway or bus system on a daily or monthly basis. They get a significant indirect benefit by this plan, because the stronger our transportation system is, the stronger the city of New York is, and in my opinion, the stronger the city of New York is, the stronger, and I'll just speak for Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk counties are, and I'm sure my friends from the Metro North region would say the same. So this plan is essential. President Ng's plan for the railroad is essential, that we all have a system that we can be proud of, and we need to eliminate in some people's minds that geography plays a role here. Geography should not play a role here. The region is one. We all go up and down together, and that's why this plan, President Ng's plan, the plans we have for Metro North, bringing Metro North to Penn Station, all of those things together are essential, even if not everybody rides the system together. So I can say from my perspective, you have my total support to get this done, and I believe the rest of the board will feel the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pelley. Commissioner Reckler.
Thank you. President Byford, I just want to also echo the comments of my fellow commissioners. I think this plan is a great plan. Actually, I had high expectations when you came on board, but you exceeded those expectations in a quick 100 days that you put forth this plan. And I think to follow the point that Commissioner Ward made, this is going to require some serious conversations, not just about the financial side, but as you pointed out, we're going to ask our customers for some inconvenience as we make this plan a reality. But as we've talked about in the past, with no pain, no gain, and right now, let's face it, we're facing a lot of pain without any chances for gain unless we put forward a plan like that you have proposed. But this is a fairly massive plan, and some suggestions just in thinking through next steps in terms of from the high level, in terms of thinking about the execution, because that's key. And I think I applaud you and the chairman for pulling back and thinking about not putting out a number right now, because we know it's going to be multiple billions of dollars. We're realistic about that. But one of the challenges that we've seen in New York is quickly coming out with a number conceptually, and that the public grabs a hold of, and that becomes the reality. As a matter of fact, in our working group, that was one of the first things we identified when people talk about why things are over budget, was because the first budget that was put out was not a well thought out budget. It was one that didn't have the benefit of the plan being more refined and the estimates being further along before they put forward. So I would encourage you to be cautious and tempered in terms of putting out numbers and making sure that when you communicate a number to the public, we have the benefit of that work being done. I also applaud your concept and thinking about the culture of New York Transit, and as others have said, echo your appreciation for the team, because I also can tell how frustrated they've been. We've underinvested in this system for decades, and we've asked them to hold it together with tape and glue, and that's not fair to them. So being able to put them on a mission where it's moving forward is terrific. But I also would caution that you need to think about, and we have to be helpful in thinking about this, is New York City Transit is still part of the broader MTA, and it still has the MTA culture, it still has the MTA challenges and silos and bureaucracy that has its pros and cons that need to be navigated. And so in thinking through the next steps of this plans, I would encourage you to think about how that interaction is going to work and what modifications would need to be made to ensure that the culture that you're trying to put forward and the systems and efficiencies and processes that you're trying to put forward aren't inhibited by the broader agency along the way, and we should work proactively to try to address them so it's not something that's fighting that progress as you go forward. Similarly, and it's been noted, the MTA obviously has a poor track record on delivering large capital projects on time and on budget. And so it wouldn't be surprising for the public to be skeptical when you say you're going to be on time and on budget. I would encourage you, as part of this next phase of this plan, to spend time working with the working groups who have been studying the pros and the cons, what's worked, what hasn't worked with respect to procurement and cost, and come up with what is the approach, what's the organizational structure, what's the procurement approach, what's the process in terms of change orders, et cetera, to ensure that we're putting our best foot forward and be transparent and thoughtful about that day one as part of that plan. And I would imagine for you to do that, that's going to require certain changes. And as I think you noted, this is a state of emergency, right? We're in a situation where our transit system is collapsing, and as my colleagues have said, that's a lifeline to our city and our region. And so in that sense of a state of emergency, what would we need to change relative to either legislative type rules on procurement, other types of rules and regulations that exist today that we can find a way to bypass as part of getting the most bang for our dollar here? Because I think it's critical that if we're going to be entrusted to invest money by the public, and specifically the amount of money that we're talking about, that we're doing it as efficiently and as effectively as possible, and frankly could be a new standard for how we do large projects in this region. And then finally, we'd be naive to think that this money's just going to flow in. It's going to take tough decisions, and this board needs to provide the leadership. We've had discussions over this past year on congestion pricing and other types of ways to raise those funds. We need to be 110% in. All of us need to be 110% in. We need to figure out what the number is. We need to talk about what the alternatives are. We need to be lobbying our respective members of the legislature and the executive branch to make that a reality. It's out there. It will get done. It has to get done. We need to find the money to get it done, and we need to also provide you with the political cover and resources to make it a reality. So I think everyone here would raise their hand in support of making this plan a reality, but we're going to have to make some of the tough decisions and have some of those tough conversations as well. So congratulations, it's a good plan, but it's a start that we have a lot of work to do and roll up our sleeves together to make it a reality. So thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, Commissioner Albert, and then Commissioner Merdler.
President Byford, I'll echo my fellow board members in thanking you for an innovative, compelling, and essential plan to move this system forward. I think it's really important the way you presented it, that what can be done quickly, what can be done in the 5 years, and what can be done in 10 years. Fixing existing systems, I think, is essential. Bringing the workforce into everything is absolutely essential. The new group station manager component that you've put in place, I think, is going to make a big difference in the quality and appearance of stations. There are a lot of unknowns still, and that's why the cost is just floating out there. We don't know how long it will take to equip all the fleet with CBTC. We don't know how long the installation of CBTC will take. We don't know if the ultra-wideband frequency is going to bear fruit and cut that in that time and labor in half to get that done. These are all things we don't know. But the cost the cost of not doing this really outweighs the cost of doing it. And so I applaud you, and I think you have everybody's support, and we're looking forward to making all of these things happen. And one last thing. When the work is underway and stations or lines or portions of lines are closed, the messaging the MTA puts out to its customers is extremely important. Now you have a sign that says, 9:30 p.m. to 5 a.m., no service on a given line. We need to tell our customers what's being done and what the benefit will be when the inconvenience is over. And I know that you think that way, and congratulations on a really well thought out plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Merdler.
Mr. Chairman, Andy Byford's statement was, as we say where he and I came from, spot on. There was one reference I did not hear this morning, and I think it must be made by way of a point. New York City has labeled itself for decades as the Empire City of the world. That is a benefit to all of the people of the United States. Our senators and our congressmen and our governors and our candidates flock to the city of New York for campaign contributions and then disappear in the woodwork when they are called upon to contribute to that effort. The United States derives an enormous amount of revenue by way of taxes, by way of economic benefits and the like from the city of New York and the New York metropolitan region. The United States, in major part, is dependent upon the vitality of the city of New York, and yet, at least for the past several years, has ignored this great city, and that cannot continue. And that is something where we must also look to for help, assistance, and partnership. It is as important to the people of this nation as is China, North Korea, and any other part of this world. For those who say America first, remember, it starts here, and it's time to wake up. Mr. Byford, I have 3 suggestions for you, each of which you have already touched upon. Under the great guidance of Steve Pluck-Chucky, we have started work on dealing with procurements. They take too damn long. They can be expedited. Joe Lota has directed that they be expedited. We have come forward with step 1 to reduce the amount of time it takes to get an ordinary procurement done by some 66%. That's an enormous leap forward, and it's only a beginning. Because if you save time and you save money on procurements, you can afford to do some of the things that you point out are desperately needed. Number 2, you have correctly pointed to the people who make this agency work. They are the lifeblood of this agency. The laborers, the workers at every level, the supervisors, the staff, what have you. Your desire to work with them is absolutely spot on. That is the key to success. You cannot ignore those who make the machine work. And lastly, I would point out to you and to my colleagues here, it's not just the taxpayer that you have to look at, whether it be federal, state, or local. It's time for new revenue sources on the one hand. And as Larry Schwartz pointed out yesterday, it's time to look at all of the corners of our budget, see whether they are realistic, see whether they can be tested, and if they are found wanting, to correct them. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Randy?
This is a hard act to follow. But I echo the sentiments. Yes, we need the plan. I worked here. I was actually a motorman in the late 1970s, what we used to call the bad old days. And I would never like to see us go back for that again. So I applaud you. Let's just go for it. I don't think this is a hard sell. The hard sell is getting the funding for it. So congratulations, and I appreciate that you thank your staff, the people who work for you, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I'm not going to repeat what my fellow commissioners said, but I want to especially support Commissioner Pally, who he and I both worked in the legislature, different eras, different houses, and different parties, but I share his belief that we are one region, we rise together, and that includes the Long Island Railroad for New York City. So it really, I think we need to support the Long Island Railroad's plan as well. I think as far as Andy Byford's plan, I wholeheartedly support it, especially the accessibility portion of it. I think it's a leap forward for our agency. It's great, and I hope we're able to do it. The funding should be prioritized there, and especially the plan to involve our employees more and get them more involved and more buying into what needs to be done to improve service. The finger pointing, the blaming, which is common in a large agency, has got to stop if we want to really provide the service we're supposed to provide. And I look to Andy to change the culture of transit. I'm looking forward to that. One suggestion I do have is when we move forward here and we're going to tell the public someone's going to have to pay for this, right? And it's going to be the public in some way, shape, or form. I think we have to show results. And as people tell me, they can complain about projects being completed late. That's all right. That happens. We're going to try to complete them on time more and give realistic projections, realistic cost estimates. But the thing is the day-to-day, I think, on the subway system and on the bus system, people can't get to where they're going. That's the problem, where they can't get to where they're going in a timely manner. And our own statistics show that they don't. You don't have to say our statistics aren't true. They are truthful. Right now, the legislature requires us annually to set performance goals, line-by-line performance goals. We do not meet them. It's in the MTA strategic plan. It's available on everybody's book, page 23. It shows last year we didn't meet our goals at all. They were terrible. I think this plan has to link to those line-by-line goals and showing how they're going to improve, to tell people that if we invest this amount of money, our service will improve, and they will be able to get to work or wherever they're trying to go on time more often. They won't have to, there will be marked improvements. I think that's what we need to show. They need to be linked, and any money we spend should be linked to improvements in our service and getting people to where they have to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. One, Andy, congratulations. You have my support to work with you and try to help in any way I can for the successful implementation of your program. And of course, my fellow commissioners spoke very eloquently and on point with respect to the plan. I think in terms of short-term quick win steps is this agency and we as commissioners need to immediately restore the trust and confidence and credibility, not just with our riders, but with labor, with our business community, with our state as a whole. Without having trust and confidence and credibility, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think that is our immediate task. I think once we can establish that and people's confidence that we're improving performance, we'll get there. And I think one of the ways that we can do that, not just through the Subway Action Plan and through some of the elements of your plan in terms of quick wins, is through our next budget. The budget's just not a financial plan, it's a policy document. And through the chairman's initiative, we created these 4 task forces. And these 4 task forces have worked very hard and have a lot of great recommendations. Those recommendations need to be finalized and they need to be included in our budget. I am going to, as chair of the Finance Committee, insist that they're included in our budget. That's going to send a very loud message among many other messages that we're going to send through the plans that we have in place, that we're changing the culture, we're changing the process on how we're going to become a much more lean, efficient, cost-effective organization. And that's going to go a long way in restoring that trust and restoring the confidence and creating the credibility that we need with our elected officials and everybody else here in the state of New York. So again, I applaud Andy, you and your team to putting this out so quickly. That's not an easy task when you're trying to figure out where the bathroom is when you get here. But you did an amazing job in a quick amount of time. But you know, our focus should not be on money right now. Our focus needs to be on restoring the trust and confidence in the system that people rely on to not only get to work, but our economy relies on, as Peter alluded to. And I think one of the ways that we can do that rather quickly is showing our budget going forward that we're going to make many of these changes for the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think if you look at this plan and the depth and breadth of this plan and compare it to what the trajectory we were on, you get a real measurement of what the true deficit is at the MTA. And this deficit's not measurable in terms of like fare box recovery ratio or any of the other metrics that we normally look at and compare ourselves to other properties. Deficit in terms of how long it takes you to get your train, how many buses come by within a half mile of your house, those sort of things. You're addressing here in a direct way. But there's part of what we've done over the years as we go to address the enormity of this project is we have maintained on the MTA board a studied position of official agnosticism regarding where you get the money. And I suggest that that is probably over with this plan, that we're going to have to take positions on where we get the money. Commissioner Reckler already mentioned a couple, Polly mentioned a couple. These are things that we're going to have to take specific positions on. And me personally, you know, there's many things that I consider positive ways to finance mass transit. I consider the sales tax a very, very negative way to finance mass transit, and that's going to be one thing I'll be pushing against. Many of these other things I can push for. But as we go ahead, agnosticism is finished, I believe, for all practical purposes on this board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioners. There being no more questions, let's move on to the meeting itself. The minutes from the April board meeting have been distributed to all the members. Are there any corrections or omissions? If not, can I get a motion? So moved. I'll second it. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The minutes carry. Now let's turn the floor over to Commissioner Schwartz for the Finance Committee report. Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that you would like to say a few words regarding the Atlantic Ticket Field Study, which is going to be our first action item. So before I move forward with the first action item, I'd like to give the floor to you.
Thank you. It's very short and sweet, but I really want to acknowledge all of the help and support that the New York City Transit Riders Council and all of the elected officials were in bringing this field study forward. I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first action item requests that the board approve the Atlantic Ticket Field Study designed to study the impacts of lower railroad fares on customer travel choices, utilization of available capacity, and impacts on operation. The committee recommends this action item, and I move it.
I'll second it. Yes.
I want to thank everybody for moving this proposal of ours forward. I think it's going to change travel patterns. I think it's going to fill empty seats. I think it's going to be revenue neutral or better than that. And I think it's yet going to be even another way to get across Brooklyn during the L train shutdown. So for a variety of reasons, thank you so much for moving this forward.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? The item has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, there are two non-competitive procurements in the amount of $8.3 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? They carry.
There are 16 competitive procurements in the amount of $9.2 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
I'll second it. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They carry.
There are 8 ratifications in the amount of $3.1 million. The Committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
And I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried.
There are 5 real estate action items this month described on pages 61 through 71 of the board book distributed for this meeting. The committee recommends these real estate items, and I move them.
And I'll second these items. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
This concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Transit Committee report is now to be given by Commissioner Ferrer.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. The Transit Bus Committee met on Monday and reports the following. There's one non-competitive procurement in New York City Transit for $3 million on page 78 of the board book. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 2 competitive procurements, one for New York City Transit for $4.4 million on pages 80 and 81 of the board book, and one for MTA Bus for $45.5 million on pages 83 and 84 of the board book. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They carry.
There's one ratification for New York City Transit for $927,000 on pages 86 and 87 of the board book. The committee recommends this ratification, and I move it.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ratification carries.
And this concludes the Transit and Bus report.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferrer. Next is the Metro North report. I will present the Metro North Railroad Committee report since Dr. Metzger is unable to be with us today. Before I do, I'd like to commend Kathy Rinaldi and everyone at Metro North for the sound judgment and proactive response they had earlier in the day when we had our terrible storm last week, a storm that included numerous tornadoes in the upper part of the Metro North service area. Their strategic decisions and quick action early in the day kept our customers safe and minimized disruptions, despite the need to suspend service due to over 170 fallen trees across the territory. During that time, at outlying stations, including at Grand Central, customers were kept informed of service changes both digitally and in person and through email and social media. I want to thank the employees of Metro North, all of the employees and managers there for the tremendous effort, as well as the MTA Police Department for their assistance in Grand Central Terminal. Now on to the Metro North Committee report. The Metro North Railroad Committee met on Monday and reports the following. There are 2 non-competitive procurements for $19.4 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them. Items have been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
On the Bombardier item for M3 parts, how long are the M3s slated to remain in service both on the LIRR and Metro North?
Sue, do you want to be able to take this?
I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Because they're really
They're
approaching.
getting old.
Not as old as the R32s, but they're old.
Okay. The item has been seconded. There being no further comments, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There's one competitive procurement for $902,000. The committee recommended this procurement, and I move it. Item has been seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There are 3 ratifications for $1.9 million. The committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them. Items have been seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Ratifications carry. This concludes the Metro North Railroad Committee report. And now the report from Commissioner Pally, who chairs the Long Island Railroad Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I report the following. There are 2 non-competitive procurements for the Long Island Railroad in the amount of $865,000. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
I'll second it. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes, I'd like to just remind everybody at the last board meeting, we had a capital construction item contract that was deemed to be a competitive contract for the bringing the Long Island Railroad into Grand Central Station. And in that contract, if you remember, there was an item where there was one electrical contractor actually that bid in both of the general construction contracts. So in fact, a big part of that contract was not competitive. And I believe that contractor, electrical contractor, was 5-star. And I've been thinking about this over the last month since we've had the meeting, and we talk about procurement, we talk about watching how our money is spent, and here's a case where the board itself, we didn't realize that we thought we were voting on a competitive procurement, but in fact, a third of that procurement wasn't competitive because there was the same contractor in both contracts. So I know we had a long discussion of this at the last meeting, and I wondered if Jano Lieber might comment here on this 5-star situation and what we're doing to be sure that we don't, I know there's no capital construction items here, but I thought this was the appropriate place to bring it up again. I would ask Jano, you know, what are we doing going forward here to be sure that these contracts that are deemed competitive, in fact, are competitive?
Well, I think it's a very good. We heard you loud and clear. What we propose to do is to address it through the Joint Procurement and Cost Containment Task Force as a recommendation. It's an internal recommendation about how we report on contracts when we bring them to the board, what's included in the staff summaries, and what information and how far down the chain of subcontracting we get into the issue of competition. So we're working with our brother and sister agencies across the MTA, and we're going to come to you with a recommendation as part of the Cost Containment and Procurement Committee recommendations about instituting.
Yeah, Commissioner Stoll, just to mirror image exactly what Jano said, we heard you loud and clear. We need to disclose this as we go forward with each and every one of the procurements.
No, and I appreciate that. I just want to be sure that we're really following up. I know that Scott's been working on this in his committee, but this is something really crucial, and we want to make sure this doesn't occur again.
Thank you. I totally agree. Where were we?
I think we need to vote on the non-competitive procurement.
Wait a minute. We have one more. Commissioner Merdler.
Mr. Chairman, a few moments ago we acted on, and wisely acted on, the Atlantic fare ticket. I have been asked by the President of the Borough of the Bronx to call attention to the fact that the Bronx exists, that its people and its workers travel both to upstate New York and to the city, and it's time that we paid attention, and I do not mean that in any disrespectful sense. I suggest respectfully that the next one is a Bronx ticket, and I thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Merdler. As a native of the Bronx, I fully understand the borough president's point of view, and I also want to get those 4 stations built up there that allows Metro North to come into Penn Station at some point in the future. In any event, we have a vote on the table. Are there any other further questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There is one competitive procurement for Long Island Railroad for $3.3 million. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 2 ratifications for MTA capital construction for $1.9 million. The committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
I'll second it. Are there any questions or comments about these ratifications? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ratifications carried.
Thank you. That's the end of the report. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Pally. Now we are off to the Bridges Tunnel Committee, and that report is given by Commissioner Merdler.
Mr. Chairman, the Bridges and Tunnels Committee met on Monday, and I report the following. There are 5 competitive procurements this month, totaling $14.2 million. While a quorum was not present for the committee meeting, all those members in attendance voted in favor of these procurements, and I move them.
All in favor say, sorry, any questions or comments before we move forward? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? these procurements carry?
There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications this month. This concludes the Bridges and Tunnels Committee report.
Thank you. And now may I have a motion to convene an executive session to discuss two matters, one of which is relating to the collective bargaining pursuant to Section 105 1E of the New York State Public Offices Law. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. We are in executive session, and we will be back following that session for comment and adjournment. what are my notes? We're back into session. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion has been moved, seconded. All in favor, aye. See you next month. Everybody have a happy Memorial Day. Thank you.
Check, check, check.
How does it look? Is it lined up right? Are we lined up right? He said move it to the right. That's good. Adrian, quick mic test for them. Yeah. Check, test, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. That's good.
first time, good morning. Generally, it's in the afternoon. There's been unanimity amongst the board today about how much they enjoyed starting the meeting at 9 o'clock. I hope you did as well. We'll start over here.
Hey, Chairman, and this could be for either you or Mr. Byford. Given the level of subway service over the last year or two and the fact that that still wasn't enough to get enough support for something like congestion pricing in Albany, don't you think that bodes poorly for when you think about looking for funding for a plan like Fast Forward?
So let me address the congestion pricing, which I've done before, and let me reiterate again. When I read the report, as when you all read the report, I read it that it's going to be done in 3 different sections. What I thought the report should have had was a timeline for each one of the steps that needed to happen. Unfortunately, given my involvement in government, I looked at those steps as what happens in year 1 and what happens in year 2 and what happens in year 3. That was the way I looked at it, and that's exactly how it turned out. What they said they would do in year 1, they did in year 1. The next step is going through. To go whole hog into a congestion pricing plan without having public hearings in the communities, without having an understanding of where it was going to be, not having an understanding of the technology that's necessary to get it done and implement it. You don't want to go into something as capital intensive and as so important that you just do it very quickly. It involves a process. So I don't buy into the idea that because of what happened to congestion pricing. What happened to congestion pricing was exactly what the Fix NYC report said should happen in the first year.
There was no language in the budget that said, then we'll do this the next year.
Beg to differ. They put together a committee of people to begin the process of evaluating the technology. No, there's language in there that does it. Paul, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good.
Just a question actually on the L train shutdown. It's less than a year away now. I was just wondering, how can you assure riders that the work will get done? I mean, it just looks like it's going to be make life very, very difficult for hundreds of thousands of people for 15 months. How can you be sure that the work will be complete within the time frame?
So the very first tunnel that we did following Sandy was the Montague Street Tunnel, which came in early and under budget. It's a perfect example of when we put our mind to something to get it done, we will get it done. There's that equal amount of pressure on the Montague Street Tunnel. Remember, the tunnel, the Canarsie Tunnel, is the very last one they'll be doing. We've done 2 already, both of which were done ahead of schedule. Actually, the 4th one is being done only on the weekends right now. The number 2 and 3, which is why the 2 and 3 doesn't go from Manhattan to Brooklyn to Clark Street right now, because that tunnel is being worked on. It's called the Clark Street Tunnel. That one is being done only on the weekends because its damage is nowhere near severe as the other tunnels that we have underneath. So, our commitment to the people who take the L train, whether it's on the Brooklyn side or the Manhattan side, is that our experience has been in repairing these tunnels that were destroyed or partially destroyed in Sandy is to get them done on time, if not ahead of schedule, and we'll continue to have that commitment to them. Do you want to?
So, Paul, I think it's a good question. Obviously, it's a real test of certainly my tenure, relatively early in the job. So the reason I'm confident is because we've got a good contractor and we've got a good plan, and the enabling works are already underway for the closure. And working with DOT, we have put together a comprehensive transit plan that is informed by an analysis of likely travel patterns. In other words, looking to see where people will disperse to. It's a multimodal plan. It is biased towards subways. We believe that around 70% of people will use the alternate routes. We're upgrading facilities at those alternate stations. We're reopening old stairways. We're widening mezzanines. We're adding facilities. But we're also doing an extensive bus plan to go across the Williamsburg Bridge, extensive bus planning on the Manhattan side, a dedicated ferry that will be part of the transit offer. So that plus there'll be huge amounts of customer service staff
as we launch into the closure. I'm pretty confident that I'm very confident, in fact, that this plan will work. However, I'm not sugarcoating it. It will be a challenge. So we're certainly not complacent about it. We've got to make sure that plan is refined. It must be superbly communicated, and it must be perfectly executed. And that's going to be a real challenge for us, but we're determined to rise to that challenge.
Hi, guys. Question for either one of you. Regarding the Subway Action Plan, now that it's been fully funded, could we expect there to be some changes with how that's being implemented? And are you happy? I mean, some of the numbers have said it's up and down. Are you expecting there to be improvement in?
Anybody who knows me knows I'm never happy.
And neither am I. It is bearing fruit. Some of the figures are looking good. The mean distance between failure on the rolling stock is improving. We've done a lot of work on rolling stock. And actually, underlying signal performance is better. What is frustratingly difficult to shift are the number of major incidents. And that's one of the key indicators that we use, because that's a proxy, if you like, for how reliable the service is. If we have an incident that delays more than 50 trains, that goes onto the list, and that is proving stubbornly difficult to shift. But I remain convinced that we're doing the right things. We are relentlessly cleaning drains. We're getting rid of garbage. We're sorting out track. We're installing continuously welded rail. We're upgrading or working on what are called insulated block joints. So we're actually doing the work that should have been done years ago, and that will come good. I mean, there was a lot of discussion around the recent torrential rain that we had. Do you remember the rainstorms that we had? And people commented on, oh, there's all this water pouring into the station. Well, actually, you know what? The drains largely did their job. What we particularly suffered from was water pouring in from street level. So I believe that the action plan will deliver. I believe we're doing the right things. I think there's a bit of a lag in terms of the benefits that people will see, but we are without question doing the right things, and that is something that we intend to demonstrate over coming months.
This is for either Joe or Andy. The last couple of years, we've heard a lot of talk about top-to-bottom reviews and improvement plans. How do you folks go about selling people on the notion, a skeptical public, on the notion that this plan announced today is the real deal?
Part of it is, I don't know of any historian. I have to go back and read the papers about what was other top-to-bottom reform plans. Since I've been here, it's been all about trying to convince folks about our credibility. One of the things I want to highlight is, in addition to Andy, we now have new presidents at each one of our operating agencies. That's by design. When I came back, I said I wanted to change the culture. You change the culture starting at the top by getting the right people to be the right managers. I think Andy and the comments of the board members today about Andy and his plan pretty much said they've never seen anything like this, and there's a reason for that. There's an overwhelming desire on the part of all of us at the MTA to remember that we're here to serve our customers, and we're going to do everything we can to change, to make sure that our customers always come first.
Can you talk about what sort of buy-in and feedback you guys got from the governor's office before releasing this plan?
I had a brief discussion with Melissa DeRosa and a very, very high-level discussion with the governor about this plan. It's our plan, and now we're going about to sell it to all levels of government and to begin the process.
Was there any discussion of funding?
None whatsoever. I've been around the governor long enough, both being appointed by him and being in other positions where I wasn't connected to him, that it doesn't matter what number you give him, he's going to want to do more, he's going to want to do better, he's going to want to do it faster, he's going to want to do it. I get that. My entire life has been working for people who have pushed me. It started with my mother, and it continues to this day. This is our plan. This is our plan, and we have to, go in the process of trying to figure out what to do.
Who's our?
Sorry?
Who is our?
Our plan?
The MTA's or the MTA's and the governor's?
No, it's the MTA's plan. This is clearly the MTA's plan. A couple of times I said it's the Byford plan. He actually, and he's right to say it. It was put together by a team of people, many of whom are sitting right over here, and many of whom are elsewhere within the building. And I think that, it's important to understand this is our plan. I was brought back, Andy was brought here, people were appointed to various different positions here to change this place. This is what we're doing.
Hi. One question for each of you, since it's a newsy week. So one question for each of you, since there's a lot of news this week. So Joe, can you talk a little bit about the story in the Times this week about your potential conflicts of interest, and do you think you can stay on at the MTA and do your job effectively?
I didn't read the article in the Times this week, but I will tell you, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here as the chairman, and will continue to stay here. Does anybody here recommend that I read it? I didn't think so.
I thought you were a subscriber. Aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, and
You're pretty much free online.
one question for Andy. So I know you said that there was a tough political climate in Toronto where you came from, but are you surprised by the intensity of sort of the debate here when you have the governor and the mayor and these people who you do need to buy in to get this plan?
Not really. I mean, as you say, I was used to a tough political environment and media environment, for that matter, in Toronto. But I did my homework before I came here. I knew this would be a tough gig, not least with the politics of the place and also the media scrutiny. And I like the fact that transit's a hot potato. If people were passive about transit, it would suggest to me they didn't really care about it. But it's good that there is this very active debate about transit, and that everyone is saying it's not good enough, and that people are saying that they need something done, and that's the reason for having this plan. People want improvement. That's exactly what they're going to get if we can get this plan up and running.
Joe? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, Juliet Papa, hi.
Hey, Juliet.
So what is the price tag for this? And is this an incremental price tag for different sections, the 5-year, the 10-year? And also, are you thinking outside the box as far as revenue stream? And where is that taking you?
So as I said at the beginning of the meeting, I need to do a rigorous analysis done of what the cost is going to be. The MTA has been ridiculed in the past significantly for not having the proper costing involved, and so I don't want to be part of a system where a year from now you're going to say, hey, Lodi, you said it was going to cost $1 and now it's $1.25. No, I want to be able to fine-tune these numbers, and once we do, we'll go public with that. That's the process that we have to go through. I mean, I don't want, the credibility of the MTA is not where it needs to be, and I need to get it back up there, and I need to get it elevated. And it's going to start with this plan.
Stream. What options are you looking at, considering, a GoFundMe page for the MTA?
I think as part of it, and it was mentioned by a couple of the board members today, is that, the decision-making on that is elsewhere, but we will provide ideas. And quite honestly, when we're ready to provide those ideas, we'll probably give it to the elected officials, and then we'll make you aware of it in that order. But there are a couple of different approaches that are out there, some of which have been talked about already, and some of which may be new. But it's really important to understand that it's not our decision how we get funded. But we will work with the legislature and all of the elected officials that have input.
So just a quick question, can you talk a little bit more about the Atlantic ticket? We know that you'll be introducing it next month.
Frederica, come on up. What's your time?
Is that yours?
So this is, as the chairman, and is discussed in the staff summaries and in the material that we put out. It's a field study of a ticket from select stations in Southeast Queens into Atlantic Terminal. It's lowering the price and also offering a combined joint weekly ticket, which we think people will try and see if they like it and if it meets their needs, because they'll be able to travel on the Long Island Railroad and on subways and buses. So we want to see how many people take it up and the impact on our operations and on the service. We're starting at the beginning of June, so you'll see it very, very soon.
And with that will come out, how the program works and various different materials for people who would be able to take it. I want to emphasize again, it's a field study. It's a field study. It's going to go over a relatively long period of time because there's a cyclical nature to how folks use the railroad, during the school year, during the summer months, during the holiday season, Thanksgiving on through January 1st. And so we need to go through all of those period of times to see its impact and see the number of riders and then to understand how to implement it and make adjustments accordingly.
Hi there. This one is for the President, Mr. Byford. You're getting a lot of positive praise in reaction to what you've said today about accessibility. Stress to us again about the need for making every 2 stops, you said, accessible?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've done the math and we've also looked at the network. And if we are scientific and targeted around how we implement the next 36 elevators, we can provide within 5 years a network where you are no more than 2 stops from an accessible station. So there might be a station here and a station there, and there may be 4 in between that are not accessible, but the one in the middle would be, so therefore you'd be no more than 2 stops from an accessible station. So there's some science behind how you address the next tranche of 36 in order to achieve that objective, which I think would be a massive step forward.
Given the colossal tug-of-war steel cage match that occurred over a drawn-out period just to get the action plan funded, why should anyone believe that the Byford plan or the forward plan will be any easier to get funded?
I've been in and around New York City and New York State government for quite a long period of time. There's nothing easy here, but we're going to have to work at it, and we're going to have to be able to convince all sides how important it is to make sure that the New York City subway system is up and running. If you go back to the board meeting and you look at some of the comments of some of the board members, I'll highlight a couple of them. Commissioner Ward basically talked about how important it is that the subway system work because of what it means to the economy, not of New York, but of the country, and how important it is. And so you have that point of view. You have Commissioner Palley representing Suffolk County, who's saying even though he is from Suffolk County and he represents Suffolk County, it's his responsibility to make sure that the people in the area that he represents on our board fully understand how critical the subway system is. This is the beginning of being able to remind everybody that this is, as I've said over and over again, the lifeblood of the New York metropolitan area. We allow everybody to get to work. We allow everybody to get home at night, to go to various different appointments that they have during the day, to enjoy, going out to dinner at night and various other things where they take mass transit. It's important. This city operates because the subway system and the bus system is there. Because of that, it's our job, it's my job, to not be agnostic about this, but to try to convince everyone how important it is to give to the people of New York and the New York metropolitan area the subway system and the transit system that they deserve.
You have said that there's no price tag yet for this plan, the corporate plan that you announced today. But what are the chances that people, the riders, will end up paying more? We know that the price of the fare goes up every so many years. Are the chances increasing for that people will be paying more for the system?
Yeah. Look, generally the fares go to pay for operating costs. What we're talking about here are capital costs, and capital over the period of time has been really coming from not the fare box itself. However, a major portion of the capital program is funded with MTA debt, which is paid out over 20 to 30 years period of time, which in fact does come from the operating budget. So there's some connectivity. There's no expectation. Look, I don't see any change in the rule that was put in place or what the agreement that was put in place almost 10 years ago, where there would be incremental increases every 2 years to the subway system equal to approximately the rate of inflation. And the last couple of increases have been slightly below the rate of inflation, but be that as it may, that was the decision that was made 2009, a little bit less than 10 years ago.
This question is for Mr. Byford. You mentioned several times before that this plan would be controversial, but it seemed like there was a lot of universal agreement and praise for the plan, so I'm curious, which part do you think is controversial? And also you mentioned before about changing the macho culture of the MTA, and I still see a lot of gentlemen here. Which part of that will be changing?
That's a tough question. Frederica, could you just come up here a second? No.
When is macho only men?
That's right.
Macho's not always.
I think when you say controversial, I think the fact that we have to do, or we're proposing to do, so much in such a compressed time period will make the plan somewhat controversial, because at the end of the day, you know, New York is a vibrant city. It's a 24/7 city, and you can't do these things without the forbearance of New Yorkers. We will need the patience of New Yorkers while we undertake this work, and that probably will attract some controversy, because at the end of the day, everyone wants a state-of-the-art transit system, but no one really wants the inconvenience that comes with it. So I believe we can win that argument, though. I think if we can demonstrate what the gain is at the end of this program, and absolutely this is worth the temporary pain, I think we can mitigate that controversy. And it depends how we go about it. If we excel at communication and we let people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, how long it's going to take, and what the benefit will be, I think you can take the sting out of some of that. And with regard to culture change, look, at the end of the day, I just think it's a requirement of this plan that we bring people with us. And in order to do that, you've got to have the right culture in the company. So it shouldn't be top-down imposition. Absolutely, you have to have some element of command and control. But what you do need to do is have a reflective makeup in your teams that reflects the city you serve and the company that you represent, but also that you listen to the front line, you understand the challenges they're under, you bother to go out and ask for their opinions. And I think that way, if your people believe in and understand the mission, you're much more likely to succeed rather than having some top-down imposition.
Sorry, just real quick to follow up. Is there any talk of closing lines for 24 hours?
Okay, well, what I said in the presentation, but just happy to reiterate, we did look at extended line closures even during the weekday, because obviously the longer you give access to crews, the quicker that you can get the system re-signaled. But when we did the analysis, it was too much. I mean, you can't shut the Lexington for 8 months in order to rip all the signals out and have people somehow find another way of getting to work. There's not enough buses to run down avenues in order to do that. So we pared it back. We believe that we can get this done within the timescales that I talked about in that presentation, by using extensive use of weekends and also the extended nights that we've now secured as part of the Subway Action Plan, where we've got a much more efficient process to give crews access to the track on time by, say, 10 p.m. But again, we've still got to be very mindful of giving customers alternatives and letting them know what's going on, what's not running, and what their alternatives are.
This is another question for Mr. Byford. So when you looked at the 5-year plan, which which lines to upgrade to CBTC within the next 5 years, did you factor in the L train shutdown into that calculus? And if so, do you imagine that work being done during the shutdown, or would you wait for that to end?
Okay, so don't forget the shutdown's next year, 2019. This plan is from 2020-2024 capital budget program. It's not to say we can't start before then. Clearly, we've got to get that L line closure executed. We've got to do it properly. But then we have looked at a logical order for doing these CBTC-related closures. It's driven by a number of factors. It's driven by the need to convert cars to begin with. You must have CBTC-converted cars and the right ones for the right lines in order to provide CBTC signaled service, okay? So it's not just putting the equipment in the tunnels. You must have compatible cars. So there's a lead time to getting that done. So the L line closure will precede that. We have a lot to do. We need to get started right now on doing those car conversions. We need to finish off the the 7 line flushing, which will happen in the fall. And then we need to gear up with all of the work that needs to be done to get these tunnels equipped and get the trains equipped. So there's a lot to do, but absolutely, we've looked holistically at the whole network and what our challenges are.
I wanted to read a statement that came in from Danny Lever, the spokesperson for the governor. If there's a more recent comment, if any of the reporters here, feel free to let us know. But I just want to get your reaction to it. She writes, our bottom line is that the plan needs to be expeditious and realistic. We made it clear to the chairman that before it is finalized, the MTA must bring in the top tech experts in the nation, because if we can experiment with self-driving vehicles, there must be an alternative technology for the subways. What's your reaction to his statement on this grand turnaround plan? And to follow up on Dana's question, what kind of partner does he have to be in this?
It's wholly consistent with what I described to you earlier, is that I fully expect the governor to push hard, to do it faster, do it less expensive, do it, but the most important words are do it. And so the comments that you just read from Danny Lever absolutely do not surprise me. They are consistent with what I fully expect from the governor's office. Oh, absolutely. I'm constantly talking to top tech experts to figure out what can we do. Look, we live in a digital age. The life cycle in the digital age we live in is extraordinarily quick. I mean, you know, the whole issue, we started looking at wideband long before the Genius Challenge came out because we thought it had potential and great opportunity. It does. I still believe it does, and we're continuing to go down that path. And as well as to talk about, look, there are a lot of things going on in the world today that weren't going on 2 years ago, if not 1 year ago. You know, driverless cars. We're experimenting in various parts of the country with driverless cars. If you think about the complexity of a driverless car on the road, and then think about the complexity or the lack thereof on a railed system, is there something in that technology that we can use? Those are legitimate questions. That's why I get paid $1 to be able to figure these things out.
Just one more question. I was thinking of, speaking of communications-based train control, you want to do this massive speed up. You already have contracts out for the Queens Boulevard line, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to change in that contract, and what is going to change in terms of the contractors who have been so far unable to do an adequate job of getting, say, the 7 line up on in operation?
Okay, well, clearly, with the timeframes that I outlined, we need very capable contractors, but not just for the signaling system, but also for the car conversion. So we've only just started on that road now. Obviously, these are very early days, but I need contractors upon whom I can rely, because if we're to meet our targets and stick to that plan which I outlined earlier, and I fully intend that we will do that, we need to have confidence that both the primary suppliers and their supply chains are going to deliver to us as per their promises. So that process has yet to begin, but we're already talking to a number of suppliers to see who's out there, what could they do, and we will be making that an absolute condition that we can rely on them, because we cannot run late on these major upgrades. Towers. We're talking to a number of contractors, so there's plenty out there, and obviously track record is one factor, but then also capacity and I guess motivation. How badly do they want the work, and can they convince me that they are in fact able to deliver against the timeframes that we're setting out?
This is obviously a very ambitious plan you have here, with to basically have almost the entire system overhauled within 10 years. And Mr. Byford, you said this could actually potentially even be sped up if the ultra-wideband technology pans out. Could you speak to that a bit and possibly tell us where we are in the testing of that, and what impact it could have if that does work out as you hope?
Sure. So effectively what we're doing here is that we're running a parallel path. I deliberately assumed for the purposes of this plan that we will go with known proven technology, in other words, CBTC, of which there are many installations, successful installations around the world. And they are actually products that are developed and installed by a great many installers, actually. There's lots of people in that particular game. So I'm very confident that we can stick to those timeframes with CBTC. My reference in my presentation to a potential expedition of the timeframe related to two things in particular. I mean, there's lots of good ideas in the Genius Challenge, but two are particularly relevant here, and potentially a third, actually. One is the ultra-wideband technology, whereby you can install the communications element of CBTC. It's not a CBTC system, but it's the communications element thereof. You could get the tunnel installations done much more quickly if the system is proven to work. And bear in mind, that is safety critical. So you've got to make sure that the system will absolutely guarantee that you know where a train is, what kind of speed it's doing, what is its proximity to another train. So that needs to be proven, and it's being tested at the moment actually in Boston. So we're still in the early stages of testing, but we have great hope for this, and I hope that we will find that it's a goer and that we will be able to use it. The second of the three is potentially new cars that could be delivered much more quickly and come CBTC equipped. So that was one of the genius ideas that we're progressing. And the third was a means of installing equipment that still needs to be installed in the tunnels much more quickly. That, again, was another one of the three genius ideas. But the reason I said paralleling activities is I'm assuming for the purposes of this plan and for the timescales that we've talked about, I'm assuming known proven entities, known proven products. It'll be an upside, in other words, what I would call a right side failure, not really a failure, but an upside if we find that any of those three elements that I just described work, because that should hopefully then mean that we can do this even more quickly and potentially with less intrusion.
In terms of the overhauling the signal system, whenever people hear about that who may not be as intimately aware of a subway system as you are, they may not know what that exactly means for their ride. When you overhaul the subway system, how many more cars, how many more people, is there some sense of how much better will my ride be once the system is overhauled?
So there's two primary benefits to modern signaling, and they are, number one, inherently more reliable because, of course, it's new technology, it's not old technology, but also there's way less line-side equipment that you have to maintain and that you have to rely upon. So if you imagine the existing signaling system, there are train stops, there are tripcocks, there are what are called insulated block joints, there's signal trees, there's a lot of stuff down there in the tunnel, which is quite a hostile environment for sensitive equipment in the first place. There's a lot less equipment that can go wrong. So modern signaling, modern technology, digital technology, inherently more reliable. So that's advantage number one. Number two is capacity. Because you are not relying on fixed points on the system where if this train is here and there's another train here in the direction of travel like that, this train cannot proceed until this train has cleared a fixed block of signaling. So it's very much dependent on line side signaling, and that limits your line capacity, in other words, the number of trains you can run. Modern signaling, CBTC, the trains talk to each other. As this train speeds up, this one can speed up. As that one slows down, that one can slow down. So you can get up to 20% more capacity on a line. It really varies, though, which is why I haven't specified in here. It varies on the geography of the line, the number of trains you run. There's a number of factors that would determine exactly how many additional trains you can run. If we take London as an example, one line is now operating 36 trains per hour, and that is on CBTC.
I want to highlight, because the question also, what is signaling? And as Andy described, signaling that we have now in the block form. But, it's one thing to put in the infrastructure, the actual readers that will tell you where the train is and what speed it's going at any point in time. The next critical step is the software that goes with that. And unlike most subway systems throughout the world, ours is interoperable, meaning that, it's not unheard of that, the 2 and the 3 and the 1 will be interchanged at any point in time. The same is true for occasionally when I get on the IRT on the west side, there happens to be a 4 and a 5. Those trains still need to be able to communicate with each other. And so as they go through the switches and they switch from one line to another line, to give us more capacity, to give us more speed, we've got to make sure that the software is there that allows each and every one of the cars to talk to each other. And so it's the software side that takes quite a long period of time to perfect. And other lines and other parts, like we'll do Washington Metro, I mean, the red line is the red line and the green line is the green line, and they ain't never going to intersect. Not true. We're a lot more interoperable here, so we've got to make sure that they all talk to each other. And that's the key and that's the trick to getting signaling to work here, proper signaling, CBTC signaling to work here.
Hi, I've got two questions. One is...
Mr. Goldman, welcome back.
How are you? One is very friendly and neutral and just a fact-finding question. The other one is a little bit more challenging to you, I think.
I know you will.
I know. So the first question is, what do you estimate is the borrowing capacity of the MTA now? And are there other sources of capital borrowing that the state of New York could provide to the MTA?
So I don't have an answer for you. I'll be very honest with you. It's a good question, and I should. I mean, we're going to need additional revenue sources to expand debt capacity beyond where we pretty much are today. We may have a little bit of room, but I don't know what that number is. So we are going to need some form of additional revenue stream. There was discussion a little while ago about congestion pricing, and there are other potential areas that we can look at.
Which leads me to my more unfriendly question, which is this. I mean, there are, as you mentioned, two proposals already out there, a millionaire's tax and a congestion pricing program. You're the chairman of the MTA. Your responsibility is to the MTA. But in this debate or feud between the governor and the mayor, you've taken a side with the governor to the detriment of the agency, arguably, because why, I guess here's my question. Why not support both proposals? The MTA needs dough. Why not support both? Why not be open to both ideas?
I've said numerous times I'm agnostic to what the revenue sources are. You won't find a quote from me against something or for something as far as any revenue source is concerned. So I'm not sure why I've taken the governor's side versus the mayor's side on the ownership of the MTA. That I'll grant you. The ownership of the Transit Authority, that I will grant you. I've been a key participant in that. But not when it comes to revenue sources. I am agnostic.
So you've never expressed skepticism about a millionaire's tax. You would welcome a millionaire's tax?
No, because as somebody who would be subject to that tax, I am not particularly interested in it. I'm biased.